Leroy Cruz here, your life applications officer. Anybody that's been watching my channel, first of all, knows that I am not black conscious. Let me say that again, I am not black conscious. Anybody that's been watching my channel knows that. But I have to unpack some things, as this one guy that Jesse Lee has interviewed a number of times, as he keeps saying, let me unpack that. I'm going to unpack some things right now. Number one, anyone that's been watching my channel knows that I'm not black conscious. Neither do I baby, spoil, or agree with black people. So before you go to acting crazy for something I said, understand that I'm not on the team. I'm not down with the cause. I am very non-black conscious. Number two, I love Jesse Lee Peterson. I think he's got a great mind. And I appreciate what he's doing. I appreciate what Colin Flaherty is doing. I appreciate Jesse Lee's defense of white people. How he's out to protect white people, and he's out to make them feel good around him. I'm the same way. I love me some white people, and I will end up in jail if anybody black handles my white friends the wrong way or anything like that. I love my white friends. Most of my friends are white. I don't say that to give myself a racial identity or a political identity or a non-racist identity or anything like that. It's just a fact. Because my culture, and Jesse Lee's the same way, my culture is not black consciousness. My culture is Christian. And in the Christian community, there is no color. Now, maybe there's a lot of white and black people in the Christian community that need to get their head around this, because it's a fact. You read the Bible, there's no reason for you to worry about your race. If you're a Christian, you don't worry about race. You can call me. You know how many times I've been called the N-word and have been abused in my lifetime by different white people? And I still am not black conscious. And I still am colorblind. I don't see people by the color of their skin or any secular form of culture. I see people by one thing. Are you a child of God? Do you love Jesus as much as I do? You love Jesus as much as I do. I know you love me as much as you're supposed to love me. See what I'm saying? If you love God, if you love Christ, the way you're supposed to love God, you will also love man the way you are supposed to love man. And I've been around white people as well as black people who, even though they claim to be Christians, they struggle with that. Okay? I think if you struggle with that, you are not qualified to have a platform of discussion on your part about what is racism or white supremacy or any of that. Okay, so I just wanted to get that off my chest. Now, as I said, we are Christians, And if we are truly, honestly, completely born again Christians, we don't worry about our race. We don't live in fear. We don't identify ourselves by our former race, because when you become a Christian, you put your race away and you focus on your spiritual identity, because your race is going to burn with your body. It's going to decay and become nothing with your body. When you go to be with the Lord, He's not going to say, "Well, good and done, my faithful white servant," or "Well, good, well and done, my faithful black servant." He's not going to see your color. He's not going to see all the wonderful things you did for your black community or your white community. He's not going to give you credit for making sure you stayed white or making sure you stayed black. The Bible says we, the Christians, are a peculiar race. It says the Gentiles have been grafted in. It says that we are a holy nation. Okay? What culture is an adopted child? What culture is an adopted child? I've met plenty of black kids that were adopted by some good white people. And even though one thing that is true, of course, I have seen one black lady that did adopt some white kids. One out of a million. One out of a billion. Only one in my entire lifetime. This woman was black and she adopted some white kids. She had two, I don't know if it was two white girls or a white boy and a white girl, but they were her kids. And she was not from Pennsylvania, trust me. I don't know what state she was from. She might have been outside the country. I don't know, but she did adopt two white kids. Brought them over here to Pennsylvania with her. And that's been the only woman I've ever met. And I met her for 5 minutes. But all the rest were white folks that adopted black kids. And I've gotten to meet some of these people. What kind of culture you think this black kid is going to grow up in? You think they're going to let this black kid go down to the ghetto and learn how to be a blood or a crip? Learn how to sag his pants? Learn how to listen to gangster rap so that he can get in touch with his culture? I don't think so. And do you think this kid is going to be upset that his parents keep him away from that nonsense? It's going to take a lot of abuse to make this kid want to go into the black community when he never ever knew or was a part of the black community. Now, getting on with it. I will say this, as much as I agree with Jesse Lee Peterson, let's get some things straight. If there is no racism, Jesse Lee says there's no such thing as racism. There's just evil. Okay, let me unpack that, as somebody else said that I don't agree with. Racism, obviously, is evil. Every evil has a title. If you molest a child, it's not just called evil. It's called child abuse. If you rape a woman, it's not just called evil. It's called rape. If you rob the bank, it's not just called evil. It's called theft or armed robbery. All forms of evil have a title. So I can't blame Cherie and some of these guys that were dumb enough to invite Jesse Lee Peterson onto their show so he could embarrass them again. Shout out to Jesse Lee for doing so, because they are a bunch of crybaby punks, okay, who don't know what they're talking about. And I'll get to that in a minute. But Jesse Lee knows that every form of evil has, okay, a title. Everything is not just called evil. Racism is one evil. Okay? Genocide is another evil. Abortion is another evil. Okay? So now that we got that out of the way, we understand that racism is just as much evil is racism. Racism does exist, yes, Jesse, because evil does exist. So naturally, racism exists because evil exists. Just like there will always be rapists and child abusers among us, there will always be racist people among us. What black people don't seem to get in their thick skull is that nobody, no country, first of all, survives without a certain amount of racism. No place exists. You say, oh, Brazil, we can go to Brazil. Go over to Brazil and see how many people you see all hanging together with one another that are of the same, that are of various colors. You can go to Thailand. I caught somebody doing a YouTube video on that. You go to Thailand. The dark-skinned Thailandish people and the light-skinned Thailandish people don't always hang together. The lighter complected Thailandish people think they're better than the dark Thailandish people. It's the same in China. It's the same in Japan. Racism is evil. Just ask that knucklehead over in Korea. Racism is evil. And it's a pleasure to some people, because as long as they have the money and the power and the gunpowder and all like that, it's okay to be racist, because it makes them feel like somebody. It makes them think that they're something that they're not. I've spent many years of my life working for companies where people didn't like me. And I could apologize and I could take discipline, and these people put me in my place, and I apologize and I say I'm sorry and I say okay, and I go back and I do it differently, and it's never enough. I've been to places where, you get in a conversation and you talk about people. You talk with people. And the white dude says, he starts telling you about his granddaughter. You start telling them about yours, and all of a sudden everyone looks at you like you've lost your mind. Am I lying about having a grandfather? Or granddaughter? What, you think I'm lying? What are you implying, sir, that my granddaughter doesn't have anything in common with your granddaughter? They're both grandkids. They're both around the same age. They both go to public school. But what do you want me to lie, and you want me to lie and say that my granddaughter doesn't make good grades in school? You're having a hard time believing that. When I talk about my family, my daughters, and what I've been through with my daughters, there are white people who don't appreciate you having anything in common with them. You could grow up in the same state, the same city, okay, and go to the same high school and college. They still feel that there must be a difference in our cultures, and a difference that separates us, that makes one more superior than the other. And I've been through this almost everywhere that I've worked. One of my first jobs, there was a white man that would run me over with the forklift because he felt that black people don't deserve the respect for someone to say, "Excuse me." And I got one "excuse me" out of this dude before I finally moved on and worked somewhere else. Every day running me over with a forklift to let me know that he don't have the respect for me, that I should see him coming. But the room is not a forklift room. The room is there for us to, I'm there to work. This is my place of business where I work at. You come in there with a forklift, you don't come in there beeping no horn or blowing any lights or anything like that. You just run people over. Especially little 5'3.5" black guys like me. Because you figure if I get mad and try to snatch your behind out of that forklift, you're going to win. And you're going to call it self-defense. Stupid black guy tried to climb up in the forklift and hit me in the face while I was driving the forklift. He was in the wrong. Just recently, I worked with a dude who would say "Hail Hitler" every time he seen me. And he was the one that I wasn't allowed to talk to the other guys and have a serious conversation. We started talking about kids. Well, I got kids. We started talking about different jobs we've had. Well, I've had a lot of jobs. We start talking about, cars. Why? I drive. We start talking about guns. I have a gun. But everything that came out of my mouth was criminal. Can't talk about my kids. Can't talk about my cars. They were all pieces of junk. They must have been because I'm black. I must have been driving illegally. Never driven illegally in my life. Might have waited too late to apply for my new tags. Waited too late to get my new registration. But I've never driven illegally in my life. I've never been arrested for anything in my life. Never. But yet I have to deal with being treated a certain way because of and if you are this and your pants ain't sagging off your behind, you ain't got no nasty looking hairdo or some nasty looking tattoos on you. You ain't into gangster rap music. You speak proper English. You know what I mean? You get along with everybody. You accept authority. You compliment people. You're punctual with people. You have respect for people. You have manners and courtesy. You know how to treat women. You know how to treat men. You know how to find a common place with everybody. You know how to socialize with everybody and all like that. Now the truth of white people begins to come out. See, it's easy for you to hide and claim that you don't want to tell black people the truth when you think there's a gun up under them sagging pants somewhere. When you think that this dude, he looks pretty muscular and tough. You be honest with him, he might knock you flat out. But when you're honest and you're humble and educated, and oh my goodness. And then Jesse Lee Peterson was talking about LeBron. Yes, LeBron is a punk. He's a crybaby. But wait a minute. You say LeBron is the only black person living in the neighborhood that he's living in? He beat some white dude out of his dream home, and you think they ain't gonna put the word nigger on his fence? What proof does Jesse Lee have that this didn't happen? Instead of him looking into it. Matter of fact, Tommy Sotomayor corrected Jesse and said, I saw the video where they showed the video where someone put nigger on this guy's fence. Now, let me tell you something. Sometimes people will call you nigger because you are a troublemaker. But usually in the case of putting it on your fence and making sure nobody knew it was you to put it there, that's usually the typical act of racism that most black people, even non-conscious black people like me, are familiar with. Just recently, not only dealing with Mr. Hell Hitler, that I had to report him to his boss. I had to go to the office and argue through this man's claims that I was lost out of my mind, that I was making this up as I go along. He finally corrected this guy. The guy came and apologized to me. But I'm still not allowed to talk to his friends about serious things. And he didn't feel a need to apologize until he almost got fired, because I actually went to his boss twice. The second time, I went to tell him that the guy wouldn't even let me use the bathroom. He wanted to fight me in the bathroom. He told me get out the bathroom. And this guy was dumb enough to think that I was going to sit there and undergo that abuse. Just recently, I went into a town just probably less than 10 years ago, less than 5. Well, I'll say about 8. Time's flying. Went into a town called Clymer, Pennsylvania. Clymer. The weather on the way to Clymer is beautiful. A lot of trees, and it's really spooky at night trying to drive there. But once you get into Clymer, you see that there's nothing out there but some old homes and farmlands and things of that nature. And somebody had mentioned the town to me. So I looked it up on the map because I happened to be riding the orange belt or purple belt or whatever belt I was riding. And I decided to take a ride and check it out. I went all the way out to Clymer. When I got to the back entrance of Clymer, now there's an entrance coming in from some part of Pittsburgh on the other side, but I came in from Westmoreland County and rode in. And I kid you not, there was a sign on the side of the road with a circle, slash going down the circle, and it said, no niggas. And I was on E after finding the place. So I pulled over and asked for gas. The man looked at me like, oh my God. I says, you're not closing, are you? He says, he starts stuttering. He says, well, yeah, I'm closing. I says, what time you close? He looked at his watch too. He said, oh, 4 o'clock, I'm running late. No, it was like 3 o'clock. I'm thinking, you close at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? He said, yeah, as you can see, I'm an old gas station. We don't get a lot of business. I said, well, there's some business right here for you. I'll take a full tank. Come on in. He says, you're not from around here, are you? I says, no, I'm not from around here. He says, well, you're not going to get any gas here. I'm closing. And I drove off. I says, you sure, man? Like, I'm on E. Where's the other gas station? Then he tried to lie to me about that. He said, oh, it's way far away. You'd be better off going the way you came. I don't know if you want to hang around here. Hang around here? You know, you might want to go back the way you came because all the gas stations are closed. So I looked out. So another guy came up. While I was driving off, I looked in my rearview mirror. He pulled up. Okay, and there was only one way to go. So I pulled over to the side of the road I decided to see. And he did give gas to that other guy. He said to me he was closed. He said that it was past 3 o'clock and he's closing. He's running late closing. But yet he gave gas to the guy behind me. I followed another car out that seemed like it was lost, and it went into a part of town where there was a gas station. And I realized that I was on the road to Katanning, which Katanning used to be a racist neighborhood. It's not as racist as it used to be. But I went out and I ended up in Katanning, and I found a BP station on the road. I followed some dude out of the town, out of this little countrified racist town, and found a BP station. And I was able to get some gas before my car broke down. These things are very, 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 very prevalent in my life, and they probably won't be going away anytime soon. This happens to black people. It happens. Just recently, 2 more, here we go. Just recently. The most recent thing is, before I start working the job that I'm working now here in Pittsburgh, I lived up in Westmoreland County, the Allegheny County end of Westmoreland County. And a little town called Cheswick. I worked in Cheswick. And when I go to work, I have on my uniform pants, and I have a shirt on that I change, just like I do now. I have a shirt that I change to. That, so when I get to work, I can put the rest of my uniform on. Okay? There's nothing in my attire that would justify a guy riding by me 3 nights out of a week and calling me nigger while I'm walking up the corridor to my job. Ride by 2 or 3 nights out of a week. The same old car rides by me and calls me the N-word. What justifies that? What justifies that? And there's many, 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 many more. I can't even remember or count how many attempts that I go through? How many situations, attempts did I go through where people treat me a certain way? Here's one that happened to me right here in Pittsburgh. There's a little town not too far from here that I can walk to. It's called Dormont. And I have a friend that moved out this way, just like me, from Westmoreland County. White lady that I have known for years. And when she found out that I was living nearby, because she was living with her daughter here in Dormont, when she found out I was living nearby, she said, "You got to come see me." So I went up there to see her and the grandbaby and meet her daughter for the first time, because I didn't meet her back in the day when she lived out in Westmoreland. So I went up there to see her daughter, and the family was very nice. But the people next door had a rebellious dog. The dog ran off the property while I was pulling up between the two homes to drop my friend off and her grandson. The dog comes running off the property. I knew he wasn't going to do anything. But I did want to make sure that if he was going to do something, he didn't go after the grandkids. So I went to the passenger side in the back on the right and stood there in front of the little boy to make sure it was a good dog. And then my lady friend got out and she was talking to the neighbors about the dog. And I walked up and I petted the dog. They felt that the dog, they went to apologizing to her because they thought that he might bite her. Didn't apologize to me. I'm the one that went around to the other side to make sure the dog didn't go after the little boy because his door was open. But I went over and petted the dog. I figure friends of hers or friends of mine. No offense that you don't know how to handle your dog. And they got offended that I petted their dog. And they said to me, they said, well, he don't like certain people because certain people, people like you have abused him. It was people like you that abused this dog. So hope you don't get offended if he don't like you. And I'm busy petting the dog. And the dog is wagging his tail. And they're telling me this little overplayed story. Jesse Lee Peterson. Racism, yes, is evil. Just like murder, rape, fighting, violence is evil. It's just another form of evil. You're right. But nevertheless, racism is just as evil is racism. So I disagree with Jesse Lee on that. I've unpacked that. Now, because I am a Christian, and I know that racism, though it be evil, it is natural, just like murder is natural. We've seen that this week right here in Pittsburgh. 3 drive-by shootings all in the same week. A guy comes to my place of business just the other day and shoots off a gun, okay? And somebody else did a masquerade shooting over in Greenfield, which is about 15, 20 minutes from here. Right here in Pittsburgh. Racism is natural. Expected. The reason why I don't let it get to me because there's nothing I can do about it. It's not going anywhere. And there's nothing Black Lives Matter can do about it except make it worse. But how come, as much as I love Donald Trump, the great white hope, Jesse Lee Peterson calls him, and I voted for him. And I'm glad I voted for him, and I'll never take that back. He may be the only president that ever was on my wall. And that "Let's Make America Great Again" red hat is the only political hat I may ever wear. I wouldn't be caught dead in Pittsburgh wearing it, though. But anyway, as much as I like Donald Trump, how come Donald Trump and Barack Obama and George Bush and Bill Clinton and all these presidents before them didn't dismantle the KKK? Every election, the KKK had their claws in somebody's death or somebody's violence in a certain state or city somewhere. Every election. They even made threats to Barack Obama when he was trying to become president, when he was running for office, when he was campaigning for president of the United States. The KKK made threats. Nobody has ever even thought or been able to, maybe even, to dismantle the KKK. And trust me, this is where Jesse Lee needs to stop kissing white butt. If you had dismantled the KKK, you would have never let Black Lives Matter exist. Let me say that again. If you had dismantled the KKK a long time ago, when you claimed that this was a melting pot and that we're all going to get along, if you had dismantled the KKK, we wouldn't have to worry about people like Hebrew Israelites and Black Lives Matter on our public streets causing trouble. But because you failed, some of your failure has caused black people to fail too. And I don't justify Black Lives Matter any more than I justify the KKK. Okay? But Jesse Lee saying, oh, well, Black Lives Matter is worse than the KKK. There shouldn't be no KKK existing for Black Lives Matter to be worse than. If Black Lives Matter want to be a bunch of racist idiots, they should be the only racist idiots that exist. I don't let it get to me, though. I don't hold this anger that Jesse Lee claims. Here's another thing I want to unpack. My father died. My mother did a great job taking care of me. However, my father, as much as he tried to be there for me, he was a drunk and a womanizer. I watched him come over my house and tried to force my mother to have sex with him when she didn't want to. I would have been glad to have my father live longer and be in my life. And there are some things about my life today that I believe would be different if my father had been in my life longer. For example, the knucklehead that I got to deal with today, and I don't usually call anybody an Uncle Tom, but this guy really thinks he's a white supremacist. This black dude that I work with, that is only one of three in his field, he thinks he's something that he's not. And he hates everybody black. Especially if you make less money than his side of the contract, or you don't have to go through what he went through to get your position. Even though the training and everything that he has is for free. This guy acts like a child who thinks he's playing cops and robbers. And he thinks he's white. And I don't usually say stuff like this, but if you met this guy, you would know, white or black, you know this guy thinks he's white. He's as black as me. And don't act when he gets upset, when he gets emotional, and shows that kind of anger that Jesse Lee Peterson hates so much. Oh, you find out real fast, he ain't nothing white about him. He pro-black. Okay? But he thinks he can be a bully. Like somebody's going to have mercy on his black behind when it come time for his employment evaluation to come to surface. But I'm closing. Look, I don't let it get to me because I know that racism is not going anywhere. I agree with Jesse Lee Peterson, but I understand that, if my dad had been in my life, he was a womanizer and a drunk and a big-time fornicator, an adulteress. Would he have really made a difference in my life? Or would he have made my life turn for the worse? How would I deal with this bully that I'm having trouble with right now if my father had more dominance in my life, in my upbringing? Maybe I would have shot the sorry SOB by now. Or maybe I would have hit him in the face and lost my job. I was raised by my mother. But the Bible says God will be a father to the fatherless and a mother to the motherless. And people in my church jumped to the opportunity to play father figures in my life, as well as mother figures, because my mother died at the age when I was 16 years old. So there you have it, folks. I'm signing off. Look, racism does exist. Fatherhood is good, okay, if it really does exist and if it's available to you. Everybody's not in a mess because they didn't forgive their fathers, okay, or their mothers. People are in a mess because they weren't brought up right, period. Whether it was by their mothers or their fathers, or maybe influences from the outside came in there and killed what they've been taught. And you see a lot of that every day too. So, racism does exist, okay, on both sides. But in closing, what we need is love. We don't need white people to be white and black people to be black and separate our cultures. No, we need to love one another. That's what the Bible teaches. The Bible doesn't teach, like Jesse Lee said in a video today. I'm trying to tell white people it's okay to have a white club. A white club that black people don't get invited to come visit? What do you mean, Jesse Lee, about white clubs? Okay, I'm sure there are plenty of black clubs. Matter of fact, I turned a couple of them down myself. Jesse Lee, look, man, you need to be teaching that people need to love one another. When we love one another, we don't worry about multiculturalism. When we love one another, we don't worry about interracialism. When we love one another, we don't worry about white, black, or Latino, or Indian, or anything else. All we worry about is capital G-O-D and what his purpose is for all of us as one big happy family called the human race. In Jesus' name. D-Roy Cruz, your life applications officer, signing off. Give me something and I'll write a video about it. God bless you. Good night.